Church, we are so glad that you have joined us today. If you're in the room, stand up. We're going to start worshiping together. You can put your hands together. If you're online, join in with us as well. We have come to bless your name, are gathered here to bring you praise. And Jesus, you alone are worthy. That's right, come on. We were made to worship you. Hearts start changing when we do. Oh, Jesus, you alone are worthy. That's right. And we sing, come on, lift it up. We sing and the heavens open. Your wind starts blowing. You set us free. Oh, we sing and the lights start shining. Your spirit's moving. It's a beautiful thing when your people sing. Come on, put your hands together. Here we go. Oh, here we're proud. Your love for us, our lives laid down is our response. Oh, Jesus, you alone are worthy. Come on. When mercy opens up our eyes, our song becomes undignified. Oh, Jesus, you alone are worthy. And we sing, come on, here we go. We sing and the heavens open. Your wind starts blowing. You set us free. Oh, we sing and the lights start shining. Your spirit's moving. It's a beautiful thing. Oh, when your people say, That's right. And Jesus, it's all for you. Come on, sing with me. The reason we're singing is you. Oh, there's nothing we love more. There's nothing we love. And Jesus, it's all for you. That's right. The reason we're singing is you. Nothing we love more than you. Oh, Jesus, it's all for you. Yeah. We sing in the heavens open. The wind starts blowing. You set us free. Oh, we sing and the lights start shining. The Spirit's moving. It's a beautiful thing. We sing and the heavens open. The wind starts blowing. You set us free. Oh, we sing and the lights start shining. The Spirit's moving. It's a beautiful thing. And your people sing. Oh, 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 when your people sing. That's right. Come on, let's stand up this morning. God, we thank you today that we can worship you, knowing that when we sing to you and you hear our worship, things change. Thank you for being our Almighty God.
When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is a mountain, you see a mountain move. And as I walk through the shadows, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high, oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet, I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see are the ashes, you see my beauty. Thank you, God. Oh, when all I see is a cross, God, you see an empty tomb. So when I fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high, oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet, I'll see through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Come on, church. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God.
Sing it.
So when I fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Yeah.
Battle belongs to you, God. Help us not to take it back on our own, because we know that when you are fighting for us, no one stands against us. We will see our victory with you.
The weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. Oh, my God will never fail. Oh, my God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Yeah. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. I'm not backing down from any giant, 'cause I know how this story ends. Yes, I know how this story ends. Come on, church. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Yeah. Oh. Gonna worship. Oh. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. Come on, church. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for victory, for the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory, for the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
You're turning it around.
You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. In your Lord.
God, we just want to bring worthiness and honor and praise to your name today. There is no one before you, beside you, above you. You are all. Why did I waste so much time worrying? You've had a plan all along. I'm listening. You made a way out of deserts and rivers just yesterday. So today, if I hear you speak, I don't need an explanation. If you tell me move, I don't need the destination. If what's promised I never see, I'm still walking with you. You're still walking with me. And you will redeem all the time I spend wondering. You've been the fire and the cloud I'm following. You made a way out of bondage and darkness just yesterday. So today, if I hear you speak, I don't need an explanation. If you tell me move, I don't need the destination. What's been promised, I will believe. I'm still walking with you. You're still walking with me. Come on. And if I know one thing,
Our God is a deliverer.
oh, if I know one thing,
God is gonna see us through.
oh, if I know one thing, our God is a deliverer. And if I know one thing, our God is gonna see us through. If I know one thing, our God is a deliverer. Oh, if I know one thing, our God is gonna see us through. If I know one thing, our God is a deliverer. And if I know one thing, our God is gonna see know one thing, if I know one thing, our God is a deliverer. Oh, he'll deliver you. If I know one thing, gonna see us, he'll see us through. Oh, he'll see us through. You are never alone. He'll never leave you or forsake you, no. Oh, he'll see you through. We're going to teach you guys a new part to this song this week, talking about how he brings us through deserts and rivers, how he makes a way out of bondage and darkness. It goes like this. Oh, you made a way out of deserts and rivers. You made a way out of bondage and darkness. Your turn. You made a way out of deserts and rivers. You made a way out of bondage and darkness. You're making a way out of deserts and rivers. You're making a way out of bondage and darkness. You're making a way out of deserts and rivers. You're making a way. Yes, you're making a way. 'Cause if I know one thing, and if I know one thing, ooh, if I know one thing, God is a deliverer. Oh, he'll deliver you. If I know one thing, God is gonna see us. He'll see us through. Oh God, how we thank you. How we thank you today that you see us through. It's not like you just put us on a path and say, you're on your own now. It's not like you say, well, you just have to figure it out. Good luck with that. Because that's not who you are. You're the God who, when we are stuck in the middle of our darkness, when we are smack dab in the middle of our pain, when our confusion is so great that we can't get one thought in front of the other, when we are feeling left out, uninvited, forsaken, betrayed, hurt, angry, frustrated, you're the God who says, follow me. I will lead you through. You're the God who says, I'm not going to leave you behind. You're the God who says, I've got you. And so today, God, we just want to worship your great name, acknowledging that we cannot do it on our own. We are helpless without you. So don't let us think for a minute that it depends on us, because it doesn't. We are completely and totally in need of you. Oh, if I know one thing, our God is a deliverer. And if I know one thing, our God is going to see us through. If I know one thing, our God is a deliverer. If I know one thing, our God is gonna see us. He'll see us through. Amen. You all may be seated. Thank you so much for being here today. In case I haven't had the chance to meet you, my name is Kim, and I have the honor and privilege of working with our worship team here, and just such a privilege every week to be able to lead and serve with them. If this is your first time here today, please know that you are our honored guest. We are so glad you've chosen to spend some time with us. And we're going to continue on with our service now through our giving, as we worship through giving, as we remember God's faithfulness to us and we give back out of that faithfulness in our lives. You'll see on the screens the way that you can give, and so you can give through the app or online or text, or there's a red box at the back of this room and on your way out. However you choose to give, please know that our hearts overflow with gratefulness as you do. Let's pray for our offering this morning. God, today I just want to say thank you for your faithfulness in my life, in the life of my family. I want to thank you that you are a provider, that you are faithful, and that you are true. And so help us to remember as we come to this time to give, that we're just simply giving back from what you've already poured into our lives. And so we do so cheerfully and thankfully. Thank you so much, Lord. Amen. Well, we have a couple of things that we want to share with you this morning before we continue on. The first one is a reminder that beginning next Sunday, that'll be September the 25th, next Sunday, September 25th, we are going to one service at 10 a.m. Woo! Okay, now for those of you that are like, okay, what's the big deal? Some of us get here kind of early on Sundays, and not that it's a bad thing, we love it. But the extra hour of sleep is going to be so nice, you know what I'm saying? So, super excited, but also excited to be able to have us all together in one room. You know, we have been through so many changes over the past couple of years. We've seen ministry change a lot. And one of the things that we want to do and we want to be intentional about is being connected. Relationships are super important. And in a day and age where we can so easily separate from one another through social media, through busyness, through fear, whatever that looks like, we want to be sure that we're being intentional about being together. So there's going to be a couple of changes coming, super cool, exciting changes. And so don't miss out. But next Sunday, we're going back to one service at 10 a.m. Also this morning, I want to invite Paul Blaylock up. He's one of our elders. He has a special prayer request that he wants to share with you today, just concerning what's going on with our building and moving forward. And so please welcome Paul.
They apparently have no idea how dangerous it is to get me. Anyway, so where we're at, God has moved so many things to make the Madison Street building happen. What we're waiting on right now to move forward is an itemized list from the builder that we can present to the bank to show them that this can be done for this amount of money. This is taking a little bit longer than we'd hope, so what we're seeking is your prayers to speed this process along, because it's simply our next step to get into the building next year. So we're looking very much forward to that. I know everyone is. So if you will, in your prayer time, if you will, just make that a prayer, that the builder would get that itemized list to us so we can present it to the bank. All right? Thank you very much.
Hey, good morning, One Church. How are you guys doing today? Man, some of you know who I am. I see some good old happy faces. But many of you don't. Just to introduce myself, my name is Dave Thompson, and I am nobody special. There's no pastor in my name. The only PhD in my name is in David and Thompson. I'm just kind of a regular run-of-the-mill person, just like all of you guys here. I want to apologize in advance. I just recently moved from Michigan, the beautiful state of Michigan and its weather, here to the Kentucky and Tennessee area. And I'm struggling a little bit to recover with the whole allergies thing. I'm just going to be real honest. In the mornings especially, I got a little bit of a cough, and in these days, coughs are a little bit of a touchy subject. You know, pre-COVID, you used to like cough to cover up a fart, but now it's almost like you got to like fart to cover up a cough. would almost be better. And so I just want to apologize. My mouth might get a little dry. I might cough a little bit, but I promise you I am healthy as a 34-year-old man. Okay. Man, that sidetracked a little bit. I wasn't expecting that. If you guys are new with us, and this is the first time you're with us, I just want you to know I'm so glad you're here. Like you, a little over 10 years ago, I met Jesus at this very church, and it changed my life in the course and direction of where I was heading. And sorry, this is unexpected, but I feel like somebody here today is really going to get something out of this. A little bit about myself. I am a happily married man. I married up. I'm hoping that she doesn't realize that one day. These are my 3 beautiful children. Up there on the top right, that is Amelia. She is my favorite 6-year-old. She'll be 7 in October. That little handsome guy there, his name is Finnegan. He's my favorite 4-year-old. And that little ball of adorableness, her name is Violet. She's my favorite child. Hey, you know what? Don't judge me. I'm a sinner just like anyone else. I'm a normal person. I drive too fast. I lose my mind on my kids a little bit. I cuss some, maybe a little bit more than some, but at times. But no, I always said that I either had to have all boys or all girls. If I had a mixture, I just knew deep down I was going to love my daughters more. And so whenever we found out Amelia's gender, I was really excited because I was actually going to get to love my child. And she was born, and I was, just blessed. I was so excited. And then we were pregnant with Finnegan, and I was really excited we were going to find out we were having another girl. And then I discovered what disappointment was. And no, I'm just playing. You're like, man, it got real. No, to be honest, after he was born, I discovered I really didn't have a favorite between the two of them. And so I realized I was wrong. And then fast forward a couple years, I realized I didn't have a favorite because my favorite had not been born yet. So, no, kids are funny. Kids are really funny. I love kids. I love little kids when they get mad because sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's adorable, but more often than not, it's hilarious because anger makes us irrational, if I can be really honest. Some of my most ridiculous things that I've said, almost all of the regretful things I have said have been a result of anger. My son Finnegan, he is so funny. When he gets mad, I just see him, he starts to fume, and he gets like, it just boils up inside him. Then all of a sudden, he'll just burst, and he said, well, oh yeah, I'm not your dad anymore. Well, I'm like, well, of course, you're so pretty, buddy. Man, they are so fun, so fun. Over the past couple weeks, we've been looking at this concept of killing what is killing you, and it's really based on this verse right here, Romans 8:13. It says, but if through the power of the Spirit you put to death the deeds of your sinful nature, you will live. And it's the idea that if we always address the symptoms of what is happening to us and we never address the virus or the thing that is killing us, we will always be sick. And so week 1, we talked about envy, and we were really kind of likening it to the metaphor of like a web, right? If you go and you clean up the cobwebs, and then you fast forward, you come back, there's more cobwebs, you got to clean them up. And if you just keep cleaning the webs and you never kill the spider that's making the webs, there's always going to be more webs. So week 1, we talked about envy. And envy is spun by the spider of comparison. And then last week, Dr. Carlos Serrano, he expertly led us through the idea of worry, and how worry, the webs of worry, is actually spun by the spider of fear. So today we're talking about the web of bitterness. Bitterness. Bitterness is such an odd thing. It's something that just kind of rears its ugly head in the most unexpected way. And first thing I want us to understand about bitterness, I'm going to cut to the chase really quick on this because I'm not going to have this big build up to it. Bitterness is the result of anger. And the reason I want to cut to the chase so quickly is because the line between bitterness and angry is so thin, but at the same time, they are so different. Fear not is said, I don't know how many times Carlos said last week in the Bible, but the interesting thing about anger is never said, anger not, in the Bible. In fact, it says be slow to anger. It says don't sin while you're angry. It says, or out of anger, it says do not let the sun set on your anger. Anger is something that happens. Jesus got angry all the time. He really did. I mean, Jesus was just walking and he comes across a fig tree that didn't have figs in the season that figs shouldn't even be growing, and he cursed it and it died. Come on, right? And then he goes into the temple just a little bit later and he walks in and he sees what people have done to the temple, and he grows angry because there are all these people making money and profiting off of this place that should be a place of healing and worship, and he gets angry, and what does he do? He fashions a whip. Oh, people talk about the flipping tables. He made a weapon. He flips tables. He starts running everyone out there. Oh, people love to talk about Jesus sitting there with the kids around in the lamb, right? No one wants to talk about Jesus the table flipper. I will. I've got the microphone. Jesus got angry. We should get angry about certain things. There are justice issues that we should absolutely get angry. There are things that should make us mad and want to bring change. Anger can absolutely be good. Anger forces us to change. It forces us to know what we're willing to accept and what we're not willing to accept. Anger can be good. However, anger can lead to bitterness. Bitterness, and this is my big idea today, bitterness is this. It is the result of unresolved, unforgiven anger and resentment that is built up over time. Anger can be good, but bitterness can really, really, really hurt us. I'm just going to be honest for a second. This might be a shock, but I love carbohydrates. I do. I know. You're like, really, Dave? You have such a wonderful physique. Body by Wonder bread. I love carbohydrates. I love bread. I love potatoes. My favorite type of carbohydrate is called sugar. I love it. There are things worth getting mad about. Like, I'm mad that broccoli is good for you, but Cocoa Pebbles is bad for you. That should be a thing. I love sugar. Can you eat sugar and not die? Yeah, obviously people do it all the time, right? It happens. Can you eat too much sugar and it cause you to die? Absolutely. That's similar to anger. Anger can be good. Anger can be wonderful. It can be great. It could be something that fills us, gets us moving, gets us going. Sugar gets us moving. I like to ride bicycles. I don't look like a cyclist, but I promise you I do. I go on 20 and 30 miles bike rides, especially up in Michigan where they actually have bike paths. And I really love that place. Anyway, I'm bitter about it. Partway through the ride, all of a sudden you start to get that crash. And so what I do, I always kept honey. I kept honey sticks on me, so I'd take a little shot of honey and it would give me the sugar to keep going. Sugar can be good. It keeps us moving, keeps us growing, keeps us changing. But if you take too much, it can absolutely lead to not so great things. Salt can be an amazing thing, right? I love salt. Have you ever had potatoes without salt? If you ever eaten with Sheila Edmondson, the answer is no. Her potatoes are always perfect. It's terrible. It's awful. Have you ever had potatoes with too much salt? It's also terrible, right? It can ruin the whole thing. Similar to this, anger can grow into bitterness, and what I want to really get to, a great example of this, the author of Hebrews kind of really sums it up like this. He says, look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Now, that sounds a little bit extreme. Whenever I read that, I think, wow, this is something really worrisome. And I want you to hear, because it's saying that we have to be careful. We have to watch out. We have to pay attention. We have to keep notice. Why? Because we don't want people to fail to receive the grace of God. That is a huge thing. That is something that we should all, especially us as Christians, should take to heart. We have to pay attention to this. And what is he saying that we have to pay attention? Because this isn't just some big, hyperbole thing, like get us to pay attention. No, this is like what I am saying really, really matters. Let's continue reading. It says, watch out that no poisonous root of what? Bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. What I love about that verse is there's several things that you can really pull out of that as it relates to bitterness. First thing I want you to know is bitterness is a root. Roots are below the surface. Bitterness is so hard to identify, it's so hard to tell until it is showing. Bitterness is a root. It is deep down until it finally rides above or starts to impact the plants above the surface. You won't realize it is there. Second thing I want you to notice is that we are to look after each other, not look after ourselves, look after each other. One of the things about bitterness is the person who is bitter is the least likely person to acknowledge and realize that they are bitter. Oh, trust me, everyone around you knows. The people who spend the most amount of time with you absolutely sees and knows how bitter you are. A bad coffee bean doesn't know it's a bad coffee bean. But the person drinking that coffee bean knows. The third thing I want you to see is that bitterness corrupts not only you, but it corrupts that around you. It says corrupting many. And a great example of this very thing that I want to pull into is a story that kind of takes place with this guy named Peter. You see, Peter was one of Jesus's best friends. He was someone who kind of followed him around. He stuck with him. He was in that kind of close, tight-knit circle, the main three that really spent a lot of time with Jesus. And Peter was really good at having an anger problem, if I can just be brutally honest. And so basically, just to give a little context of the story here that we're going to be pulling up in Matthew 16, Jesus is about to head to Jerusalem to begin the final stages of what he came to do. And so he's here kind of preparing his disciples, preparing the people who followed him, giving them kind of a heads up as to what's going to take place, that he's going to go, he's ultimately going to be arrested, he's going to be tortured, and he's going to be killed, but he says, I will come back in 3 days. So let's read into verse 21. It says, from then on, Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem, and that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. He would be killed, but on the third day he would be raised from the dead. Now, if you've followed this guy around for the past 3 years, chances are, if you're still around, if you're still there, you're still following him, you've bet everything on him. Your future, everything you plan to do, everything you plan to achieve, it is all wrapped up in here on him. And so what does Peter do? Peter does what Peter does best. It says, but Peter took him aside. He begins to get angry. Took him aside and began to reprimand him for saying such things. Did Peter just reprimand God? I don't know how many times I've read this, but reading this recently, I'm like, the audacity. Did he seriously and then it hits me, every day. I do, almost every day. Heaven forbid, Lord, he said, this will never happen to you. He gets angry, he begins to speak out. Why? Because deep down, we'll get to kind of the heart of anger in a few minutes. He really lets that anger come out. Jesus turned to Peter and said, this was verse 23, get away from me, Satan. Now, if you're ever in an argument with your wife, you could probably get away with it once. No. She might laugh, it might end it now. He says, you are a dangerous trap to me. Well, what does he mean by that? You see, Jesus knows what's about to happen to him. And in this moment, Jesus is 100% God and 100% human at the same time, which means he is just as susceptible to temptation, to wanting to veer off, to wanting to go the other way. He knows what's ahead of him, and he's tempted in this moment. He says, "Get away from me, Satan. You are a dangerous trap to me." Let's keep going. It says, "You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's." Every time I look at when I was angry, can I just say there was a perspective issue more often than not? See, I'm seeing things specifically from my perspective, from my way of thinking, from my life experience. And I'm not taking into account anybody else's, their background, what's going on with them. He says this anger is a trap. And then, just as Jesus does, he takes, in one statement, he gives us not only a great definition of what anger is, but he gives us the resolution and how to get past it. In verse 24 and 25, he says this, "Then Jesus said to his disciples, 'If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way.'" Let's stop there for a second. Anger is when I want something. I have an expectation. I have a desire. I see what it's going to be. This is what I'm expecting to happen, and then it's taken from you. I wanted to sleep in, but I have 3 kids. I wanted to sleep in. I didn't get to sleep in. I'm angry. Right? I wanted to get to work on time. Chris used to be my boss. He knows that never happens. I scrolled on TikTok way too long, and now there's traffic. So I'm angry. You see, the definition of anger, if you really want to break it down, it's I see a mark, I see a goal, I see a target, and the target was missed. It didn't happen. My way. Whenever you are angry at someone, it is often because they missed a mark with you. Missing the mark is also a great definition for the word sin. You see, whenever you're angry with someone, it's because you feel as if they have sinned against you. When you're angry with yourself, it's because you feel as if you have sinned against yourself. Whenever you sin against yourself, it always results in anger. Whenever someone sins against you, it always results in anger. A great definition of anger is whenever I want something, I see it, I want it, I liked it, I couldn't buy it. And I'm angry. Simultaneously, he keeps going. He says, "Give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me." We'll keep going into the 25. "If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it." I wanted something, I didn't get it, I'm angry. And here's the kicker. What you wanted, maybe you deserved. What you wanted, maybe it was good for you. What you wanted might have been a great opportunity to advance, whatever that looks like for you. But for some reason, you didn't get it. And right here, between the intersection of your expectations and your reality, there is a choice. Am I going to stay in my anger? Am I going to sit in it, soak in it, sour in it, which leads to bitterness? Or am I going to spew it, which, not to mention, also leads to bitterness? Am I going to work out my anger in a healthy way to guard my heart? It has little to do with the other person. And I think Peter heard Jesus, but I don't think it really set in, if I could be honest. I think he heard Jesus. And the reason I say is because a couple chapters later, here it is, everything that Jesus just said is about to come into reality. It's about to happen. It's actually happening in this moment. And so the guards come up, and they're there to arrest Jesus. And what does Peter do? He gets mad and chops off some dude's ear. I mean, that's a little, like, that escalated quickly, right? Jesus does what Jesus does. He picks the ear up. He kind of pops it back on like a Lego set. Just, right? Boom, you can hear again. In that moment, Nobody had a real right to be angry except for Jesus, if I could be honest. Jesus was just betrayed by Judas. Jesus was being arrested unlawfully. Jesus was about to be tried for crimes that they couldn't even come up with something. They just kind of made it up. Oh, he's the king of the Jews, right? Like, Jesus was about to go through all of this. Not to mention, Jesus knew he was about to die on a cross. For why? Because you and I sinned. If anyone had the right to be angry, it was Jesus, but yet Jesus is the only person in the scenario that's not angry. Why was Peter angry? Because Peter is afraid of losing what he thought life was going to be with Jesus. He thought it was going to bring him a platform. He thought it was going to bring him this greatness. He thought that he was going to have this earthly kingdom that Jesus was going to usher in. And guess what? Peter, being Jesus' one of his best friends, gets to be right there next to him, leading next to him. He's afraid of losing the thing that he thinks is best, but he's only seeing things as humans see. And he's holding on to his wants. Now, all right, so if we understand what bitterness is, we understand how to get rid of it. What are some signs that bitterness is rising in you? Whenever anger comes, these are kind of our normal responses. First one is this: the fume and spew. And you guys know what I'm talking about. Whenever it just builds up and builds up and builds up, and all of a sudden it all comes spewing out of you, and some of the most vile things you could possibly think of come out. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 5 love languages, but right around the time we got married, someone bought us a book for our wedding. Don't buy someone a book for their wedding. Called the 5 love languages. I mean, thank you. If you're in this room, thank you so much. It's wonders. 5 love languages. There's 5. Quality time, gifts, acts of service, words of affirmation, and touch. I am a words of affirmation, acts of service. You typically have a top 3 in gifts, okay? So, like, tell me I'm doing all right. Do something nice for me and buy me a little something every now and then, okay? Like, I really like sugar. That's how I feel loved. My wife's, on the other hand, are quality time, okay? She doesn't have a top 3, she has a 1. And so I remember shortly after we got married, I got home from work before her. I'm sitting there playing a video game, as I did back then. And she comes home, and I could just tell the moment she walked in and saw me, I could tell she was mad. So I said, hey, honey bunch, hey, sweetheart, you all right? I'm fine. It's a trap, guys. I said, okay, unpaused my game and kept playing. You'll learn I only have 2 brain cells. Rarely do both of them work at the same time. That's like a big brain move. This was a no brain cell day. Anyway, I'm sitting there, I'm playing my game. I decided to keep playing. She just keeps fuming. I hear it coming out of her. I hear it getting mad. And then finally she says it, like after multiple times of me saying, are you okay? What's wrong? I can tell you're mad. Please talk to me. She says, well, are you just always going to be playing video games? And so I lost it. And the first thing that came out of my mouth before I could stop it, right? This is the spew moment. I said, why did you have to be quality time? You literally had 4 others to choose from. Fast forward a few weeks ago, I'm working on this message. I'm like, babe, I'm really struggling to come up with like a great story from like a time when I spewed and like, I said something I regretted, and she said, oh, you mean like the time when you said, and I quote, why are you quality time? You literally had 4 others to choose from. I was like, girl, you need counseling. She didn't miss a beat. The fume and spew, right? You fume. You never actually go to the person and deal with it. You never actually deal with what's happening to your own heart. You just fume about it. And eventually it comes out of you, and what comes out of you is not pleasant. The second is this, it's payback. Man, my daughter Amelia is mean. I am bullied by her. I'm just going to be perfectly honest. Poor children's ministry in the second service. I am sorry. I make the world's best eggs, maybe second to Sheila. I don't know, we'll see. I make amazing eggs. I think Gordon Ramsay would shake my hand and say, those are the greatest eggs I've ever had. I'm like, I know. I make amazing eggs, and every time I make my kids bacon and eggs, I always make sure they understand how lucky they are to have a father like me who makes the greatest eggs in the world. One day when you're married, you're going to be like, they're going to make eggs for you, and you're going to be disappointed. Why? Because they're not my eggs. I remember one time Amelia got mad at me. I swear she was holding on to this. She's a payback type person. She doesn't get even, she wins. I don't remember exactly what the scuffle was, but all of a sudden she stopped. She said, "Dad, your eggs aren't even that good." Payback, the myth of redemptive violence, the idea that maybe if I hurt them enough that eventually either my feelings will be made right or they will stop hurting people. I promise you, no matter how many times Carrie Underwood digs her keys into the pretty little side of a souped-up four-wheel drive, takes a Louisville Slugger to both headlights, he's not going to think about it before he cheats. Why? Because payback, revenge, is kind of like eating candy. Tastes great for a second, and then it's just gone. Disappears. It doesn't help anyone. Finally is this. It's the stealth attack. And this is kind of the I'm gonna just get quiet, the silent treatment. Because man, that helps when I'm angry. Hey, I'm going to be really angry at you, and the way I'm going to express that and make sure that you understand why you hurt me, how you sinned against me, is I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm not going to talk to you about it. In fact, I'm just not going to talk to you at all. You know, one of the number one reasons for divorce is breakdown of communication. If you stop talking to each other, if you stop expressing to each other, yeah, it might be uncomfortable. No one called you to comfort. We have to talk. Stealth attack. And if you have any of those things happen, guess what? Guess what's rising out of the surface? That is the bitterness in the root. That is the root showing its first signs coming above the surface. If you have those things, be concerned. So, some practical things. If we feel like bitterness is coming up in us, what are some practical things we can do? Well, first is this. Seek to understand. This should be the right responses. Seek to understand. Can you imagine if we changed our perspective just a little and we chose, I'm going to seek understanding before I seek assumptions? I'm going to seek what their life is like. I'm going to try to understand what their day was like. Whenever my waitress or server misses filling up my cup, I don't instantly assume that she's a bad server. I assume I understand that she's probably really busy. Seek understanding. Get to know what you're mad about. Get to know what you're mad at. Understand before you assume. The second thing is this. Intentionally de-escalate. Man, my daughter Amelia, whenever she gets fired up, she just keeps growing and growing and growing. And you know what? I used to be a really great parent, and I would just escalate with her. Why? Because it's fun. I, too, like to get really angry. And then eventually I learned that, you know what? The hard thing to do is to actually de-escalate. The hard thing is to actually calm down. And so I chose I'm going to start calming down. And guess what happened? She calmed down too, eventually. Third thing is this. Make observations rather than accusations. Accusations always add fuel to the fire. Avoid the word always. You always this, you always that. They don't always. There are no absolutes. Instead, make observations. When you say this, I hear this. I feel this. It expresses this to me. When you do this in that manner, this is what I heard. This is what I experienced. I observe this, and guess what? More than likely, they're going to come and say, that's not what I meant at all. And guess what? Now you're seeking understanding. Wow, you got a 2-for-1. Now, practical things are great, and don't get me wrong, I love practical things. But if we were practical all the time, anger really wouldn't be. Why? Because anger is irrational, as I said at the beginning of this. So let's get irrational for a moment. I want to put verse 24 back up on the screen for a second. Thank you, Chris, for making me sound extra spiritual. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must what? Give up your own way, take up your cross and follow me. If anger is the result of sin, right, missing the mark, the very reason Jesus ever spoke those words is because I missed the mark. You want to talk about irrationality? I deserved death. I deserved eternal separation from him. I deserved his wrath, and instead he came and he gave up his way and he took up his cross and he walked a walk that I know I could never walk. If we choose every day to remind ourselves of that fact, I am here and I have life and I have life eternally. Why? Because there is a God who loves me so much that he sent his son to die for me. Suddenly, if I become consumed with that, there's no room for anger. There's no room for hatred. There's no room for bitterness. Why? Because it's all irrational. It makes no sense. If you're here and you've never expressed that yourself, I want you to know that there's a God who loves you so much. And even though we've missed the mark with him, I don't know how many times he says, I will lay down my life for you. I'm going to pray, and I'm going to close this out. And I just want you to know my hope is that this week you would be receptive if someone says, I'm sensing some bitterness in you. That this week that maybe you will have a chance to seek understanding before you seek assumptions, that you would observe before you accuse, and that you would de-escalate. Why? Because we follow a God who put up his own way and carried his cross for you and for me. God, I love you. God, thank you so much for being a God who chose at the intersection of reality and your expectation. God, you chose to make a way for us to come back to you. You chose to make a way to bring us to you. God, that you chose grace instead of justice. You gave us exactly what we did not deserve. God, if there's anybody in this room who is taking that teetering edge, who's stepping over into faith in you, God, I ask that you push them over that wall. And you make it where they can't help but fall in love with your love. It's in your great holy name that we say, amen. You guys can go be the church.